Hello, welcome to Squish Vision, where I'm about to react to Boom, the latest episode 3 of Series 14, or Season 40, I guess, if you really wanted to. Siri, I wasn't talking to you. Don't worry about it. Moffat's return to writing Doctor Who for the first time. Alexa, Volume 0 in
Okay, I've changed it.
10 years, right? No. Yes, no. 7 years. I think that's when Capaldi ended. Wait, what did you
I
change?
found this on the web.
What did you do? What did Siri said they've changed something. What did you change? Ups. Oh. Hopefully nothing important. Damn it, Moffat. That episode was just on all and every account spectacular. It wasn't flawless. There were parts where I was like, you missed an opportunity here, or the parts where it kind of didn't land the delivery, but a good 8 out of 10. Just 80% of it was just phenomenal. I mean, literally within the first 7 minutes, and barely 3 lines from the Doctor, and it's clear, for all of his faults as a writer, for all of his faults as a producer, it is explicitly clear that Stephen Moffat understands Doctor Who and understands the character of the Doctor. Perhaps the best of any of the modern contributors to Doctor Who. He just, of everyone who wasn't involved in Classic Who, and even more so than some of those, he just understands the character of the Doctor. The fact that the very first thing the Doctor does in this episode, before we kick off the plot, is hear someone scream in a battlefield and just, without thinking, without worrying about the risk, runs to go help, is just like the epitome of, like, you could, this is Blink levels of self-containment. That, like, Blink is lauded for being a very self-contained Doctor Who episode that you can watch and not have to know anything else about the lore, to the point where it's kind of sometimes given an example of a starting point. And I think it's a bad example of a starting point for Doctor Who, because Blink is a very good piece of television. It's not really a Doctor Who that's not fair. It is a Doctor Who episode, but as kind of on a technicality, it barely features the Doctor, and in fact, you could probably remove most of the appearances of the Doctor from it. I mean, they're barely in it, and they don't play a driving force in a role. It's Doctor Who light episode by design. It could be a sci-fi episode of any show. It's not a Doctor. It's not. It does take parts of Doctor Who magic, but if it's appeared in any other show, I wouldn't necessarily be like, this is a script from Doctor Who. I might think it's heavily inspired by and has lots of like the kind of feel of it. It wasn't. So I don't think Blink is a particularly good episode to like introduce them to Doctor Who with, because I think if they go for Blink, their expectations, and they got no feeling for the rest of the show. They've just got a good concept. This is the most self-contained episode of Doctor Who you could probably watch. Probably even more so than like the Unearthly Child. I mean, heck, if I was gonna think of self-contained Doctor Who episodes, completely the most self-contained Doctor Who episodes, I think it'd be Daleks and this. Unlucky Child, no, because really, Young Child, for all of its historical relevance, is actually not a particularly good story, and is only really lauded in retrospect because of how good the rest Doctor Who is. Um, Whereas the Daleks, even though the Daleks, you need to know why we're traveling. You know, like a lot of it is based off the fact that they were kidnapped and stuff, and like so. The momentum of the show hasn't. It's because obviously TV is more serialized back then, so things just went from episode to episode to episode. I'm going on a bit massive tangent. The point is, this episode is brilliantly self-contained. Everything you need to know about Doctor is established in this episode. If the first appearance, you know he's someone who is willing to rush into danger to help someone. He's clever. He's the lead. You know, in her first scene after the credits, you get a good introduction. This is, I mean, Ruby's still new to the series, but this is my favorite best I've ever seen. Like, clearly she's grown into the companion role. I know there's a controversy about how there's a 6 month time jump some point during the Devil's Cord. There's a lot of like kind of backlash against that. But if you're gonna see what she's been traveling with Doctor for at least 6 months, you feel in this episode. Like she clearly knows her role. She feels like a companion. She does a companion role. She's not in her depth. She's not, later season versions of Martha or Rose or Donna or Clara who all kind of like were developed to a point where they were so uber competent that they were, and that's not a problem, but it's like the more you develop, the more you remove. There's a sweet spot, I think, where the companion isn't entirely like is still like mystified by the world, that they're able to be a audience surrogate, but they're not entirely like green eyed for stage falling stage. And I think Ruby has reached that point now, and I believe it. I also haven't changed my background. I swear I was doing that, but I must have forgotten. So yeah, like what was I saying? Basically, you in this. Can I not? Can I not use AVIF files? Where is it? Where are you? Where are you? Um. And the cold opening sets the whatever you need to know about the world, the risk, the plot, the danger. You know, we see someone get killed by the mind, so we know what it does. We know how quick it acts. We even before the Doctor, and I love this for Moffat, I love this for Sean, I love this for the Doctor. There is no subtlety, no punches pulled in the commentary and the critique of how war is a vehicle for capitalism. Like the show is not. If honestly, I mean, I can see people criticizing it's maybe too overt, maybe often 44 level of overt critique of a social issue. But to be honest, given the current political climate they're in, and the fact that I've been spending 5/7 of the past few weeks at various pro-Palestine, anti-genocide demonstrations, I'm honestly like completely over the idea of being subtle about the fact that capitalism and war go hand in hand. There's a very strong connection and critique, and this episode does not shy away from that. But even before even before the Doctor explicitly says it, the show lets you know that's the theme. That's one of the feces. In fact, if not the feces of the episode, with the fact that the ambulance, the medical healthcare, the technology is designed to calculate how useful you are, and then and the idea of just like that. I mean, maybe it's a bit too anti-AI, but that's a personal kind of bug myself, being someone who did this undergrad dissertation in how good AI is. I'm a bit defensive of AI, but that's not what we're going to get into here. That's not the tangent we're going to get into. Maybe just the episode's a bit too critiquey of that, but I mean, to fair in the context of capitalism and AI and putting military values and lives That's more than fair enough. Um, I even was fine with the critique of faith as someone who is a person of faith. I think it's clear where Moffat kind of stands on the idea of religion. I guess they're not supposed to find a point on it, and fair enough. Um, but to his credit, he also kind of threw in a bone and was like, faith isn't inherently bad. It's just the way you personally use it to kind of either question or not question the world. And as someone who is a person of faith, but also a scientist and also frequently questions the world and my own faith and how it should represent my actions, I'm not strongly against it. I mean, it is clearly a slant here, but it's like not a unreasonable, at least in far as my world opinion goes, basis on the world. So that's fine. And there is a particularly valid reading of that commentary, being that people co-opt, no, people appropriate faith as a way to scapegoat how war is scapegoat away from the fact that war is a vehicle for capitalism and instead make it a thing about belief when really it's just about profit for people who are nowhere near the battlefield. Um, Throughout this episode, Moffat was just breaking hearts the entire time. The fact, I mean, like, kick the dog, save the cat moments of all around. The father who dies in the cold opening straight away is established as a sympathetic figure you want to root for, and then that's kind of ripped away from you. The person who's got a crush on Monty gets maybe a bit egregiously for the sake of emotional wrench punching, but hey, Moffat's been listed amongst people like Rowling and Whedon and whoever it is who wrote Game of Thrones, which I've never seen or read. Martin. Hopefully, there's nothing dark about Moffat's background. It's not a particularly complimentary crowd as it used to be back in the early 2010s. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, Moffat doing that kind of killing someone off just for the sake of killing someone off isn't, unknown for him, so I can't really critique that too much. But and the thing is, it was executed so well. Like it was like abrupt, and then you never saw the actual death. You just saw the hologram appear afterwards. And that whole idea, that whole concept of that kind of AI posthumous thing was just so like interesting. The tension around the mind, the character work between the Doctor and Ruby in this episode was really, really, really spot on. Like all of the reservations I had about Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday that I got from Church Ruby Road, gone. I was unsure about them in Space Babies, but between last episode and this one, I think I don't know how apart Church Ruby Road and this series are filmed. I don't know if they had time to kind of develop the character more inside their head. I don't know if the writing for them was a bit more polished or what the reason was. But I think definitely the Church of Ruby Road did a massive disservice, but they've grown into a role amazingly, and they're doing so well. And I generally am now rooting for Ruby as a character, which is obviously one. And that interaction between the two, the part where Ruby was like, "I'm not gonna throw you this counterweight because I can tell, and the reason you asked me to risk is because you don't want me to like get killed in it, even though." We later realized that, or maybe the Doctor didn't know that earlier on. Also, the bit about how the landmine uses the person who stands on it as the fuel source, and that the Doctor, being a Time Lord, is a much bigger fuel source. I like as soon as it mentioned that the person who stands in the mine is a fuel source, I'm like, Oh, it would be really cool if like it gets revealed that because the Doctor's a Time Lord and canonically has been it's mentioned is a much more bigger source of energy than a normal person, will somehow be an explosion. And then that becomes part of the episode. And like, Moffat, you and me are on the same fandom wavelength there. It's very validating when you predict a twist before it comes. Um, very, very validating and very pleased with myself there. Uh, I think the resolution, it's not necessarily a deus ex machina, but it is a bit kind of like, well, it kind of is in a sense. It's kind of like the Doctor tries something, it doesn't work, and then, or it actually does work in a much more easier way, which requires no real effort from anyone that we see on screen. You know what I mean? Like he sends the dad thing in to kind of just like collect evidence, and that doesn't work. But then the dad can just defeat everyone anyway. Is a bit. I think that's where the episode falls its weakest is in the ending. Is the color. I'm distracted by the white balance of this camera. I obviously have it set on auto white balance because I can't reach the camera to kind of modify it, and it's just making it look really pale and grey. It's not the best look, but whatever. That's the kind of the. I need to play around with that at some point. Not now. I think the resolution was probably the weakest point. To be honest, I think the build up was. It's not bad. It's not that bad that it takes me out of how much I enjoyed the rest of the episode. But it isn't the strongest part of it. Why isn't this hotkey working? Um, Sorry about the noise. I tried to press the thingy to make the hotkey go off, and it's not going off. I don't know why it's not going off. We'll just do it manually. We're very kind of. Arguably, this was a ball episode. There's like two sets. I mean, there's one which is clearly a green screen. Then there's this area behind me as the other set, and then there's obviously the base camp, and there's like three sets this episode, and it uses it very effectively. It's very small scale, but not small scale. Also, the idea with ambulances is terrifying. Um, I think Moffat's new villain concept is healthcare, um, which I mean it works. So we'll go with that. Yeah, like Moffat delivered. Um, and yeah, I've done a big video on my other channel because it was before I started this channel. I think it was one of my vlog everyday episodes about how I think Moffat's a better writer than he is a producer. I think he does most of his best writing when he's not having to worry about showrunning, when he's not having to worry about the arc, when he's not having to worry, when he's not having to basically be a script editor in his own writing, and also when he, yeah, I think, and this kind of proves that, right? I think being able to focus all his energies onto one script and refine that clearly came through. Okay, I'm running out of stuff to say, and I want to do a quick reaction video to Wicked, and then I need to pack a bag because I'm going to London tomorrow for a March, and I'm gonna get no sleep. But next week episode looks like it's gonna be spooky. And I'm not sure how like comfortable I am watching that when it's like midnight, but this is what you forced me into, Dave Russell T Davis. This is what's gonna happen. Okay, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all in a few minutes for my reaction to Wicked trailer, and then probably not for the rest of the weekend, all things considered, considering I'm going to London tomorrow and then LARPing on Sunday. Oh, my might see me Sunday evening. Okay, cheers.